So in this video, I'm going to go over how I glue up tabletops or any type of lamination with boards, especially longer boards that I can't run through a benchtop jointer. And this is probably a common problem for a lot of woodworkers with smaller shops or newer woodworkers or just people who don't have a jointer always available. So to get a seamless edge is it's not that hard. It's pretty simple. If you have a trustworthy flat edge piece of metal or a track saw. The track saw, it could be any type. Don't have to be Festool, but this is what I'm going to use. I have the track for it, and I don't have a jointer that's going to be able to work for these longer boards. For smaller stuff like this, it's fine, but you want to get a flat edge before you laminate top. So it's very important to use something. You got to have some kind of way to do this. There is ways to do it on a table saw with jigs or with the square, but you could get a track saw. You could get any type of track saw: Milwaukee, Wen, Ridgit, DeWalt, Festool. I think even Ryobi, Grizzly, and other brands make them. So you just have to have something. This is the easiest way for me. I have the tracks already put together for longer boards, and you can just use your track saw to get the straight edge, or you could use a circular saw with a straight edge. But the track it makes it simpler for you. And when you do that, it's very important just to make sure you lay it out correctly and label where you essentially you joint. Your track saw is going to act as a jointer. Then later you can take it to your table saw. So that's what we're going to do now. We're just going to go over how I like to do this. You could do this all with one tool. Two, you don't need a table saw. If you have one straight edge, you can flip it over and then do the other side with the track saw also. But I like to use a table saw since I have it, and this makes it easier to get a seamless joint on both sides. So let's go over how I do this. Here it is very important to take the side that you marked if you're going to use a table saw that you already cut with the track saw straight edge. You want to put that side that you marked against the fence of the table saw. And now you can cut to your final width, and also hopefully straighten out the other side, so you should have two straight flat edges on each side now if everything is correct and dialed in, which is not always 100%, but typically this will solve any seams in your lamination, in which you want airtight seams if possible. So that's all we're doing here. So now we're going to cut to the final width for this, and we could do this. We're going to do this multiple times for different applications, and it's pretty much all the same process for the most part. To me, I think biscuits are a perfect application for these types of glue, especially thinner diameter wood. And it's not too long or too cupped and bowed. So if it's pretty standard, poplar or pine or any type of wood, if it's not too thick in diameter, I like to use the biscuits. It's fairly easy. It's cheaper solution than dominoes, and I think it works pretty good. I mean, definitely a faster application, and it definitely helps align. It's not as strong as the domino, but I still think it works, and and it's my go-to for smaller to mid-range applications. If I'm not going to use glue, but this has a little this example here has a little bit of cupping. You'll see in the center. It's not exactly flat, even though the seam's straight. The wood itself has a little bit of a buckle. So we're going to try to use the domino, or I'm sorry, the biscuits. Dominoes probably would work really well here too, to kind of resolve that with some cauls. Okay, so this is a perfect example of even though you're using the biscuit joiner and you have biscuits in, you have good clamping pressure, you're still going to need cauls sometimes. Sometimes these boards do have a little bit of high spots or a little cupping or like a little unevenness. So you're still going to be using the cauls to straighten that out and tapping it down if they have any high spots, and just tapping it down with a little mallet and just getting good pressure. You don't want to over tighten it, because if you over tighten, you're going to push that seam up more. So you don't want that to happen. So use good, nice pressure. So just keep that in mind, and we're going to go into the next step here, where we're going to be cutting even longer boards, and this is going to be different wood. It's going to be maple, but it's the same concept. We're going to use the track saw on one side, mark it, label it, and then go to the table saw. Send everything to the planer. But then we're doing nice lamination, and this time we're going to use the domino. And the one good advantage with the Domino is you can set your mortise to be a wider setting on, I'll call it the female connection on your glue up. So you're going to put your tenons in the one side. And I usually set that to the tightest setting for the Domino, and then the receiving part I will put on a looser setting. That way it gives you a little bit of play, so you can kind of move the board a little bit if you need to, just to make sure it's nice and even, so you get a good, even, clean glue up here, which is very important. That's all we're doing here. It's the same concept, whether using Dominoes, biscuits, Dowels, or just glue. You want to have a good, clean, seamless glue up, and you're always going to find little gaps here and there, especially with long glue ups, I guess. It's just inevitable. So a lot of times I just put a tiny bit of glue, maybe a tiny bit of sawdust in the gaps if I need to. But typically you shouldn't have to do that if you get a nice tight pressure, but not too tight. You never want to over tighten it, but you want to have it just tight enough where you see the glue kind of start coming out. Trick for the last one, the middle one. I have these little Dowel pointers or finders, I guess you call them. And make sure these guys line up. Actually, let's throw some temporary. Let's line these guys up. Pretty close. Dowel pointer. Here are just little bits I bought. They're different sizes. You put them in your Dowel hole and you line it up. So just lining this up. Also line up here. Alright, so hold the whole side. See this go. Okay, you see we use the Dowels here too. It's the same concept. It's not my favorite application. I think it's definitely harder to use Dowels. You have to, especially if you want the female hole to be a little bit bigger, you're going to have to change bits out. It just becomes, it's not as preferable. It's not as desirable as using whether it be biscuits or Dominoes or even just glue, depending on the size. So here we're going to just go with natural glue. This is a smaller application. I don't mind just using glue, especially if I know my boards are for the most part straight, and I don't have too much of an issue with alignment. I think glue is more than fine. Definitely it's not really going to affect you. So I think just using glue is good as long as you have good clamping pressure and your boards are lined up good. I don't like to use just glue on bigger glue ups. I like to have some kind of like system set up, like whether it be biscuits or Dominoes, but like for like just smaller, end tables or something like that, I think glue is more than okay to use, and just keep that in mind. But you may need cauls. If I think I need cauls, then typically I will try to throw a biscuit in. But typically, if I don't need cauls, I'm pretty comfortable just doing a natural glue up, and that's fine. So just keep that in mind when you're laminating your tops, whether it be a tabletop, a bench top, a butcher block, or even a cutting board. You just want to make sure you have good clamping pressure and good systems to make sure you hold that together. And also keep in mind, over time, humidity changes will adjust your wood. So wood will move over time. If you give a table to somebody and you screw it directly into the frame, you can have issues with the table, the joints splitting over time when the season during seasonal changes. So keep that in mind, and that's something I also have a video on that. You know how I use Z-clips. I'm a big fan of that, especially with bigger glue ups. So like I said, this is just a fun video, just showing you how I try to get good seamless joints. You could use levels, like I said here. You could use machine squares to get the straight seam. I think a track saw of any type is more than fine, and you should have no issues and get a good seamless joint. It's very important. You don't want to have a bunch of gaps when you send something out, especially if you're doing it for other people. So like I said, whether you use the Biscuit, the Dowel, which is probably my least favorite to use, the Domino, or just good old glue. And the glue, you want to keep in mind, use a certain glue for your application, whether it's outside or something else with epoxy. You want to use like a Type Bond 3 or a cutting board, Type Bond 3, but Type Bond 2 is good for most applications also, or Gorilla Glue. Just always keep that in mind. When you're gluing up, you want to have the correct glue for where it's going for the environment. So that's about it. This is just a fun video. Hopefully you learned something and maybe teach me something. This is just fun stuff for me to do. Very busy right now, and I appreciate you watching. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.